Hey, Casual here. Sorry for the very slight delay there at the start there. As always, something goes wrong. I had to reboot my whole system just to get it going. So thanks for joining me for the live stream today. So this is our Outriders live stream. And in this stream, we're going to be covering a few things. Firstly, I put out a video earlier this week in which I talked about the firepower mods and just trying to explain at a high level how those work, and to be fair, there's some summarization and we can go through that shortly just to explain what's going on there. Let me just change this a sec. Hopefully that shouldn't be too high. Yep, that looks good now. I think the sound levels are probably a little bit better there. Yeah, so we'll go through some of that stuff on the firepower mods. And if anyone has any questions, please do ask the question or ask questions about that. Then also going to talk a little bit about some of the WorldSlayer news that's been coming out this week. Not a lot, but there's some out there. So we'll have a chat about that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about builds. I'm just going to feature one of the builds that I put out before, and so people will talk through that and how it works and one of the glitches that's still in the game. And then finally, I think if we get time, we'll do some expedition runs if people want to join me. Probably run on my Pyro, which will be the build we'll look at, and yeah, people come on and join me. But let's jump into talking about the video I put out this week, which is all about firepower mods. And what you can see on screen at the moment is the Trickster. And where this came about was that that when I put that video out about the world records Trickster build, which we went through in last week's stream, and I'll just touch on it really briefly this time. There was I got a little bit of pushback from people saying, hey, why aren't you using, I think at the end of the video, I suggested swapping out Captain Hunter if you wanted to bring in Damage Absorber. And a lot of people said, no, swap out Bloodlust or Sharp Eye, because they only increase your firepower by about 50,000, 52,500 it is. And I said, well, no, I don't think that's right, because of the way these firepower mods stack. And in simple terms, when you look at firepower mods, when you go through to your screen, you'll see your firepower for this particular character, 175. Now that includes some of the buffs that are already within the build. And when you actually stack your Bloodlust and Sharp Eye, all you ever see this going up by, that firepower number, will be the number that's in their actual tooltip. So for Bloodlust, 17.5 times 3, 52,500, thereabouts. That's what you'll see adding onto the firepower. But the problem is that's not how damage is actually calculated. And there is a whole big formula behind it, which I was chatting to a couple of people who look at all this on Discord about how it actually works. And the reality is everything actually stacks off your base firepower from your weapon. So in this case, my Death Shield with firepower of 95.8 and 95.8 thousand. Now that means therefore that Bloodlust and Sharp Eye have a much bigger impact than just 52,500, say, of 300,000 or 400,000 as your firepower will stack up to. And that wasn't really being allowed for when people were saying, hey, use Captain Hunter, and it was just clearly wrong. Well, kind of, and we'll come on to that. The way I looked at it, though, was to say, okay, you've got to look at an easier number, because to try and attach it to this and then how it flows through can be quite complex, and most people won't look at that. Most people will start with a number that's up here. And so I tied it back, and what it was really showing was that based on, on a gear set where you've got 5 pieces of firepower, I was getting stacking of about 40 to 43% on those particular mods, compared, of course, to about 25% that you get from Captain Hunter. So you get a lot more from them. Now, the one proviso to all of that, of course, is that they only give you that much when they actually are fully stacked. And there are probably about 4 expeditions, 4 where actually that matters. Where it matters about the stacks, and that, of course, is Molten Core, it's Frontline, a little bit of Paxim Homestead, I think there's one other. But yeah, where you're basically fighting an elite, and at that point you won't have any stacks. And in which case, Captain Hunter may be better. I think the other cases where Captain Hunter could be better than Bloodlust and Sharp Eye is when you are not doing a pure build, firepower builds, or sorry, pure rounds build, and that's because the pure rounds builds, the idea would be you're only ever using your main weapon. You're never swapping away from it. However, if you're doing something where actually it's not a rounds build, it's firepower based, but you decided, hey, I don't want to use rounds. Maybe you're playing a Devastator who doesn't have a rounds based, or you're playing something like the Pyromancer where you're using reload boost to buff your damage that way. And if you haven't seen that, that's a great mod, and you get some great combos of that. So the way reload boost works for the Pyro is when volcanic rounds drops, you get a 50% damage buff, and it's a damage buff. It's not an anomaly power buff, it's anomaly damage. And so what you're doing with that one is you're effectively you use your volcanic rounds and hit reload, swap weapons, whatever you want to turn it off, 50% boost, and you can hit them with Moaning Winds, you can hit them with Claymore, Torrent, you can hit them with Shadow Comet, and all of it's buffed by 50%. So it's a huge buff, and so you are going to be constantly changing weapon. That's where something like a Captain Hunter really shines, because Captain Hunter buffs all damage. Basically, you got to think about all of these buffs for this game. Is you have the ones that buff your base stats, your firepower, your anomaly power. Okay, things like Bloodlust, Sharp Eye, Anomaly Echo, Power Assimilation. These are all ones that buff those stats alone. And that will create your base damage. All the other ones, including Captain Hunters, are debuffs. They're debuffing the enemies. So things like Euthanizer, Radical Therapy for toxic damage, Bloody Boost for bleed damage or tainted blood, and then Bullet Kindling for burn damage. They all buff or debuff the enemy, so they take more damage. With those ones, if you're using Moaning Winds on the back one, brilliant. They will be better than a pure firepower related mod. So I just wanted to cover that very quickly. There is, as I said, there is this whole formula behind it, and I won't go through it. It's there, but in essence, it means that when you are looking at the impact of these mods, you're not looking at how much they increase basically firepower is used to actually drive your overall weapon damage. Then within your class tree, where you have weapon damage buffs like death probability, that then buffs that damage after the firepower is already fed in. So anytime you use anything like a Bloodlust, a Sharp Eye, it's going to buff that weapon damage, and then it'll get buffed again by these class tree nodes, including things like Disruptive Firepower, which buffs your weapon damage. So they scale, which is a great thing. So they might only do 52.5, but it's 52.5 on probably a fairly small number. Say 95,000 for your weapon firepower. That then scales up as you then roll these other sort of buffs to your weapon damage out, and that's why I think that those sort of mods are so effective. So I just wanted to cover that. Just say as well, hi, I think we've got a few more people on. Big thing, if you have any questions or you want to talk about any sort of topic, throw them into the chat, and happy to talk about them, happy to cover them. I mean, this is the purpose of this live stream, so you got the opportunity to talk about builds, talk about anything you want really. And if you have any got a build you want me to look at, or maybe even make a video about, well, do email them to casual@nylcasualgaming.com and I will get them. There's a website, Outriders.app, that you can go to, and you can actually build your build within that website, and then get effectively a PDF off of that, which is great. It's a great little utility. The other thing it's got in that utility is you can see how weapons scale. So say you get a level 42 blue rifle, you can see how that will then convert. So I'm just going to turn this down just a touch by the looks of it. Shout if it's still too loud. That looks a little bit better. It was peaking a little bit by the looks of it. But hopefully that's still at a good level. So yeah, it will help you show you how that will convert into a fully upgraded max level epic item. So a really great tool if you're trying to get a god roll and you don't quite know what the firepower would need to be at certain levels, and you can almost work backwards by playing around with it and show you what you should be aiming for if you're saying you're farming Horus in the dunes in order to get weapons for any particular build. And yeah, look, I mean, yeah, if you don't know that, the best place to farm probably if you just want to try and get epic gear or blue gear and upgrade it is to go and play Horus in the dunes, one of the hunts. It's at 20 seconds. I can show you very quickly now, just in case you haven't seen it. Maybe is the answer, because I'm not sure if my hunts have been reset or not on this character. But yeah, no, they're not. So what you do is you go to Trench Town, go back to Noah in the bar, open up restart all of the hunts, and then go to the one in the dunes. And the great thing about it is you can just literally get into the zone that that Horus is in, run down, shoot Horus and a behemoth. You get drops from all of those, including titanium and also leather. Let all the other mobs die. It resets you at the top of the hill. It takes, once you're max level and you've got a good build, you can do it probably in about 30 seconds. And just keep doing it again and again and again. Obviously set it so that you're also looting for the right sort of gear, blue and above. And that's a great way to try and find that perfect piece of gear for any build you're trying to do, rather than trying to do expeditions and get either a perfect purple, which almost never happens, or getting blues, because you're just not getting them at the same rate. I know, can't remember which content creator it was, but they were farming for that god roll crit, long range damage, short range damage, tactical AR, which they convert with either bone shrapnel or perpetual mobile as the second mod on it. And I think they got one of those within 2 hours with a god roll of sort of 95 firepower, 95,000 firepower and above. Great place to go and do it. Okay, so one of the other things I wanted to talk about is the latest news on WorldSlayer, and there's not a lot, to be honest. It's still very quiet. I mean, I don't know if you've seen, PCF are putting out a tweet on Outriders probably about once a week. I mean, it's one of their ones which is sort of like, oh, here's a nice picture, what do you think about it, or write a caption, or what's your favourite, I don't know, or what's your scariest monster or something like that. I think they put out recently, which is like, really? Clearly it's blood merging. So yeah, they are still sad. So there's no direct news from there. The one thing that I think Babylon spotted, which to be honest I think all of the content creators have spotted, we just didn't actually think to actually report it, was that on YouTube, when you actually go to upload a video or even a live stream, you actually enter in which game it's about, and it just helps the algorithm to point people in the right direction, to know to know what the audience, what videos they want to see. And one of the options that now comes up, and it's been coming up, I can't remember exactly when it started, but say maybe about 2 weeks to a month, it started saying, okay, yeah, thanks. Namo the one. I'll get to that in a second. Just finish what I was saying. So you now have the option to actually upload videos and attach them to Outriders WorldSlayer. So that means possibly it's coming, and coming within the near future. Now, as to what that means, my gut feel is, there were two dates that were always possible. One was, sometime around February the 25th, which was 1 year from when the demo came out. The other one, and I think that's really unlikely, not least because there's so much coming out at the end of February. I don't know if you've seen the schedule, but yeah, you've got Witch Queen coming out, you've got the Destiny 2 Witch Queen, you've got Lost Ark, You've got Horizon Forbidden West. Is it Horizon? Yeah, Horizon Forbidden West. You've got Elder Scrolls Elden Ring. It's too much coming out at the end of February for them to do that. So my gut feel is we might get something in April. So April obviously is the 1 year from the official launch, and that could be why you can now actually upload content attached to that particular video. Or it could just be that they're going to be going and doing a whole load of marketing and they want to be able to put it onto their YouTube site and start pumping that out. So it could be that we'll see something in a couple of months. It could be that it's still a way off. I think once we start seeing some real marketing coming out like they did before New Horizon, then we'll know. As soon as we start seeing announcements about their broadcasts that they do, that's probably the big sign, and I think we'll look out for that. I'm hopeful because look, there's not a lot of content available at the moment. I mean, the game is still great fun to drop in and out of, but there's nothing new to do. And I think also most of the builds now have been pretty much done in terms of creators putting out those builds. I don't think people are really finding new stuff now. What you're seeing is maybe very slight tweaks on what was already out there, or an update of stuff that they put out a little while ago. So then jump into questions. We had number one, wondering why AP-based rounds builds are not really working in this game. Yeah, I think the big thing you got to bear in mind is that while, say, blighted rounds or twisted rounds for the, I pointed on my screen, which you can't see, it's there. Twisted rounds on the Trickster, while they convert your shots into anomaly damage, all of the damage you're doing is still scaled off your firepower and your weapon damage. All it's doing is changing it. All it really means is you know, for the Trickster, it's a little, I think it's a little bit better. So with the Technomancer, it applies toxic, blighted, toxic, and changes it to anomaly. For the Trickster, it does actually increase your firepower ever so slightly. I mean, it's a tiny amount, but it's something. I mean, it's basically 15,000. It's probably on a standard build an uplift of, yeah, it's not a lot. It's not, maybe 15-20%. So not a lot to really notice, but it's something. The big thing it does though is that those anomaly infused rounds bypass armor, and that's the big advantage, particularly when you're fighting things like the Broodmothers, who have a lot of resistance and armor, which is why they're so tough to shoot, take down. Other ones, obviously a lot easier, but typically elites have the most armor in the game. And so that's the big advantage of the round space, is it completely ignores all of that. But all of your damage is still scaling off your firepower. So if you stack anomaly power with those, it just won't hit hard enough. Now there are a couple of mods and nodes you could pick up, but I've never been able to get a viable hybrid to work really well. And I think you see it best. There's a couple of I think one mod that is relevant to all classes, which is on your weapon, which I can show you here. So we just go to there, and it will be this one. So anomaly enhancement, which would, you know, so you stack your anomaly power, 40% of that would go through to your firepower. So that's reasonable. I think probably if I then swap, you know, I'm just trying to think. I don't think the Trickster has it. No, it doesn't. You have it in part there, and all of them. So I think the one that's got it probably best is the Devastator, because the Devastator has a class node, and it's basically would be this one, where that is, that then converts also a further 15% of your anomaly power into firepower. Trickster has that one, so yeah, you could do, because you're going to get a buff to your assault weapon damage, so you would get that. The problem is with all of the round space builds, so on the Trickster, the Techno, and on the Pyromancer, is they don't really work unless you're picking up all of these, and yeah, sort of the buffs like that. Yeah, all of your ones that they're such massive buffs you're getting from the top tree to your weapon damage, that unless you have them, they just don't work, unfortunately. I would love it if you could have some sort of hybrid build, and I tried desperately to make one really work with the Devastator. The Devastator, and of course that wouldn't be a rounds base, it hasn't got rounds base, but it would be effectively an anomaly powered class, but then also does a lot of firepower damage because it had that 15%. And the other thing it's got on the Devastator is Mighty Tank. And let me drop over so you can see it easier rather than me talking hypothetically. By the way, good recommendation. Start a new character and get past the prologue and just call it bank. You run out of stash space so quickly with 4 classes using the same 100 slots you have. So that's my guy. It basically holds all my legendary weapons. And Tempest, I saw your question. I'm going to get to it straight after I finish this one. Okay. Alright, so within the Devastator's class tree, yeah, as I said, it's got that one there, anomaly bullets, that gives you that buff, 15% of your anomaly power. The other thing you have is this thing called Mighty Tank, and it doesn't look like much because it says increasing your firepower by 5% of your armor, anomaly power by 5% as well, albeit of course, for every 5% that the anomaly power goes up, basically 40%, well 55% of that with those two things would then feed through to your firepower as well. So you kind of want them both to go up. But you also have then things like, you do have that one there that will give you a massive buff to armor. You obviously have a lot of armor buffs in this one, so it gets your armor to quite ridiculous scales. The other thing you have with the Devastator, so I've got to run a little way over here just to get to Dr. whatever his name is.
Good to see you again.
So I can show you the mod that the Devastator has that helps you to make it work as well. It's basically, I did put out a build on it, and that's probably one I do need to upgrade because it's just not fully optimized. I think it was called Tank and Spank maybe. So within these you basically have armor boost, and then you also have Panzer Drain. So you have 2 mods within your Earthquake that basically buff your armor up. And I think I maxed out my armor with this build that I did at about, I think I got to about 1.8 million of armor. And then you're suddenly going, okay, so I'm going to get 5% of that as firepower. So off the top of my head, that must be, it's just not a lot. That's the only thing is, what is that, 100,000? Plus then you're getting another 55,000, say, from the anomaly power, because that's coming through as well. It's not massive, you can get it to where, you can get it to a stage where it's okay, but it is never good enough. And I think that is, I mean, I think it's a shame. I think it'd be great to be able to play and maybe that's what the intention is, that they wanted the hybrid to be one that was just kind of okay at everything but couldn't be stellar at everything, or else it would be completely unbalanced. So I guess I can get that, but you're getting sort of maybe, I don't know, 300,000 firepower, 300,000 anomaly power, so it's going to hit pretty well. All of your skills are going to do pretty well as well. You can debuff it maybe by using Golem with obviously you'd have Golem of Death, but you want the one that the radial, Bleeding Impulse. So you're then applying bleed, you've got Tainted Blood on, so you can start to stack up some of that damage pretty well. But it just never, it's just not as effective as, say, you know, for the Devastator. It's hard to see beyond the Seismic Commander gear set because it's just so damn strong. It's just kind of stupid, really. You know, with the 50% buff, the 40% you get from the Tainted Blood and Bloody Boost, and then the healing you get from the class tree from here, and it's just like, it's so strong, it's crazy. I mean, I think from all round builds, the Devastator Seismic commander build is probably the best build in the game. For me, you can do all the content, including Realm of Fear. You can do Eye of the Storm with it. It's just a great all-round build, more so than probably any of the other classes can do, and it does it in pretty damn good times. It's still slower. When you look at the world record speed runs, Pyro and Techno are pretty much neck and neck. The Techno does well on any of the expeditions where the enemies are spread out a lot, and particularly things like Boomtown. I think the record on Boomtown is about 1 minute 47, which is crazy. Yeah, Tempest. Yeah, I mean it's hard not to. Then you jump up. The Trickster is probably about 2 minutes slower than the Techno and the Pyro, and that's really because. And I had this discussion with someone else where I think in one of my videos I said, I think it was the one that was bored, try this build, where it was trying to make the Trickster into a AoE damage by using a little bit of pain. And it's great. I mean, it works because you're doing about 1.5 million damage each time you pop Time Rift on everything it hits. So if you hit 10, okay, so you're doing 15 million damage over 6 seconds. That's pretty nice. So it worked, but I said, yeah, the air starts, so most people don't think of the Trickster as an AoE, and someone got really upset about it because they said, oh, no, you've got, it is an AoE. And I'm like, okay, let's have a look at the Pyro. The Pyro has Heat Wave, has Ash Blast, has Feed the Flames, and you just keep going on. There's sort of like 6 skills of the Pyros are AoE damage. The Techno has Pain Launcher, the RPG, it's got Cold Snap, it's got your turrets. You go, yeah, that's got Scrapnel, that's got 6 skills that can do AoE damage. And basically the Trickster has 1 that's really effective because Cyclone Slice, it's just rubbish. It just doesn't do any damage at all. I don't know why they've never buffed that, and the fact that you're stuck in it for those seconds is just horrible. And then Anomaly Blade is okay, but it's still not strong enough. So you really just got Time Rift modded with a little bit of pain, or pain transfer, or both. Don't think you need it if you go for the full buffed little bit of pain. And so it's just not an AoE build, and I kind of lost my train of thought there. But that's why you don't have AP based rounds builds. They don't kind of work, unfortunately. Probably the closest you've got is the Pyromancer. Look at them. Have a look at my build guide that's on the Pyromancer the world record run, because that's probably the only one that is kind of, it uses the rounds for the reload boost debuff or damage buff, but it has a lot of anomaly or skills based in it, as well as using your weapons. It's a really good fun one to play if you like to constantly be swapping weapons, to be popping off skills the whole time, and makes it. I mean, I don't like the rounds based builds because, like the Trickster before, you don't do anything. You use Hunt the Prey to pop behind people. Your Twisted Rounds is up all the time and using Time Rift to effectively do some AoE and to do a bit of crowd control. But then you just point and click or hold the trigger down, and that's awful for me. I like stuff where it's much more active. So hope that answers the question. Tempest, firepower builds and you're aiming, it's like, hey, look, to be honest, I have exactly the same problem. I was trying to build a sniper, so I've never done a sniper, and they don't really, or sniper or rifle builds don't really work on console. I'm on console. Yeah, I think maybe on PC where people are much better with just pointing a mouse, but on console, I don't think sniper-based builds are at all good. It's just too hard to hit the shots you want to hit, particularly when you got half dozen, excuse me, before chasing at you. It's just a nightmare trying to hit them and not just take damage. So I agree with you. I have that problem, and I think in some respects that's why. Good. No, so it's using that on your Pyro. I think it's definitely worth it. It's a lot of fun as well. So good. So what I found that same struggle on my Techno, yeah. So when you look at the best builds, out there for the Techno, typically it's using a tactical assault rifle with critical damage, long range damage, and close range damage. Making sure, obviously, with the Techno, because you get buffs within your class tree and as your actual class, that you're staying at long range. I mean, that's really important with all these guys. Is understand where they get buffs. For the Trickster and Devastator, you really need to be in close range. Pyro, do whatever you want in some respects. Techno, you really want to try and stay at long range because you get, I think it's a 15% buff through your class to long range damage, and so it's quite key for that. But I can't hit the shots in the way that you see the top guys do, and I think they're playing on PC, and that probably does help. So what I tended to use on, I don't think I've got one on this character, so I might have to jump again. Oh no, there you go. So something like the Amber Vault is not a bad one that I'm showing here. I keep doing that, I point it there and you can't see it. It's there. It's there. Or maybe no, that way, it's over there. So you can actually then mod that with Killing Spree, and say if you're using a Techno with the Borealis Monarch with Ultimate Freezing Bullet as a second one. If you're not, you could then mod it with, if you're using just any other build, you could then put on Dark Sacrifice onto it. So you can get both of them there. And so you can imagine the ultimate one for the Techno is Killing Spree with Ultimate Freezing Bullets and the Borealis Monarch gear set, because the Freezing Bullets give you a 90% damage buff. Second best now would be Dark Sacrifice, because that gives you a 75% damage buff that's there all the time. So you've got 75% coming from Killing Spree when it stacks it up. You've got 75% coming, or 90% coming from your second mod. That's a hell of a lot of damage. Now, it's not the best gun because it's got close range damage on it. That's not ideal. You'd really want long range damage. But on the flip side, with something like the Amber Vault, you've got a reasonable sized clip on it. So you can just spray it and hit enough that it works, and it does enough damage that you still won't have problems with toxic lead going down. It's a little bit tougher on brood mothers because it's not doing that. When you get your tactical AR to hit a crit on a brood mother, they go down really, really quickly. With the Amber Vault, it won't. It will take a little bit longer. The other options you got, of course, is go for the Absolute Zero. Again, it's a standard AR, so it means you've got, you're spraying a little bit more. You haven't got that. I've got to get that 3-round burst perfectly, and you can then obviously mod that with Freezing Bullets and Killing Spree, Dark Sacrifice. I think Dark Sacrifice is a close second behind Freezing Bullets, and Killing Spree is third. The difference being that with Dark Sacrifice, there's that chance you'll go down because of the health drain. Now, funny enough, on the Devastator, it's really not a problem if you're using it. So I did a build. There's a couple of things the Devastator has that makes the Dark Sacrifice easy. One is it has the health regen. And so I did put out a build on this recently, is that, the Zero with Killing Spree I think would be a really good one, Tempers. So you could, I did do a build that uses the health regeneration, because there's a mod, which, I'll just check with Dr. Zahidi again. Hang on. So you can see it. So there's a mod that you can use for the Devastator with that build, where you pick up three of the health regens, and then you got this one, the cycle, and basically, so for each of those health regens, it's basically, it converts to about 30% additional weapon damage, which is quite nice. But then there's a couple of other things you can do to actually then buff it even further, which I've got to try and remember now. So the first thing is, within the class tree, is you have, which one is it? It's this one, I think. Yeah, that one. So for each of those health regens you pick up, you get another 10% through Vim and Vigor. So now you're up to 60% weapon damage from actually just stacking those. Also, you'd probably go through the middle tree, and that would then you pick up the damage mitigation, which is actually quite not a bad way to actually make sure you stay alive. Then the other thing you can pick up is typically on your skills you've got tremor, and you're using this with, I think it's the statue gear set that gives you 100% additional weapon damage when you pop golem or tremor. And you pick up the mod in tremor, which is that one, because that then gives you, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's like another 30% weapon damage from that mod, plus you get armor to keep you alive while it's regenerating health. The great thing of all these things is because you've got so much health regeneration, the drain from Dark Sacrifice does nothing at all. So the dev can just sort of sit there and go, oh, it doesn't really matter. And then what I use with that is obviously use this gun. So you use your Fatal Symbiont, which is great for the Devastator because it's got armor piercing. So that's perfect. You put bleed onto your golem because you're going to be having golems. The statue gear set kicks in. So statue gear set is that one. No, that's the marshals. There we go. I think I changed what it looked like, didn't I? Because I hate the look of the statue. Oh, that's that one. Okay, so you got that 100% damage you're getting from golem and from tremor. Plus, it gives weapon leech to all of your teammates, which is great. So it's a great team build on that one. And actually, the statue's gear set has some nice stuff. So you've got on there Power of the Stones, so it gives you a 40% weapon damage buff when Tremor is active, and that applies to all of your allies. So it's a great one for actually, if you want to burn down elite, pop Tremor. You get a massive boost to all of your damage because you're getting that 100% weapon damage. You're getting the damage from the cycle and the health regen, and everyone on your team is getting an extra 40% as well. And it makes burning down elites no problem whatsoever. Ugh, sorry about this. So then the other mod on the Fatal Symbiont you'd use is Ultimate Damage Link, and that's the Devastator is the only one where you really see how strong that mod is. I don't know why, but there's something about, I think, the just pure weapon damage of the Devastator that it's incredible. And what you do is you shoot everyone but the elite you're trying to kill. And the reason being, I think, one of two things, and I've seen some posts around it, and I had some ideas as well about why, but the enemy you're not shooting, or the enemies you're not shooting, take way more damage than the enemy you are shooting. Which you go, well, that doesn't make sense. You're only supposed to share 40% of your weapon damage. And the answer, it seems to be that if you apply, say you've got a Captain Hunter, you've got Tainted Blood, Bloody Boost on there, so it's buffing the damage that enemies take, what happens is that buff applies to the enemy going to taking the damage initially that you're shooting, and then when it shares it, it applies it again. So they end up getting it basically multiplied twice. The other thing, and I don't think, obviously it's very difficult to prove this, the other thing that might be happening, which I thought was, well, hang on a sec though, when you shoot the first enemy, it's got armor. And you can get to probably about, I think it's about 70 or 80% armor piercing with this build, but it's still always going to be a little bit taken off. Does the shared damage bypass the armor of the person, the other enemies hitting? I don't know, but certainly something's happening where if you've got one elite and you're shooting everyone else, that elite will go down before you finish killing the other ones, and it's just crazy. So they're a really interesting mod. So so that's absolutely. Killing Spree, I think, is a great one. Just bear in mind, if you're playing the expeditions to watch out for will be Molten Core, Paxian Homestead, Frontline, and then there's one other, and I always forget it, where basically you have an elites where there's no one else to kill. And that means that you will not be able to ramp Killing Spree up, you won't be able to ramp Bloodlust or Sharp Eye up, and you see your damage output is going to be a lot lower. You think about that spider at the end of Molten Core, quite a bit of the fight, there's no other enemies on you can actually attack. So you're going to be at a bit of disadvantage compared to someone using Dark Sacrifice. However, if you've got the 90% buff from the Borealis Monarch gear set and also from Ultimate Freezing Bullets, then triggering that, you're still going to be doing pretty good damage. But it's one to watch out for. Pick the right expeditions. Everything else, normally you can just weave, and you can weave in a few smaller enemies, come back, we just keep your stacks up and just be imaginative about that. Wow, time's going past really quickly. So I think I was just going to say, one thing I think I'm probably going to do in the future is, if people are enjoying these sort of live streams, I will make them longer. I started at an hour because I'd never done them before, and so I didn't know whether I'd be able to survive an hour, let alone anyone watch me for an hour. I thought I'd be down to like one person after about 15 minutes, but obviously not the case. So I probably might try and extend them out, maybe start a little bit earlier. Difficult for me to start them later as I have some commitments at about 3 o'clock local time. Yeah, you can certainly do that. That's right, Tempers. You can certainly. I mean, maybe that's what you do. Is you run a couple in parallel, so you can flip to it. That's a really good idea. I mean, you even could really quickly just swap it in your inventory and then start the fight that way. I mean, it's not like there's a timer that matters. It's not like we're all speed running. So who cares in some respect? So I wanted to just cover two things really. So I'm just going to swap again because I've mentioned it in a couple of videos recently, and I just wanted to show you it because I don't think I've ever quite shown it in reality. So jump over to the Pyromancer. Okay, so this is one of my Pyromancer builds. It's not the speedrun build, and this is actually the one that's basically the glitch build. And the glitch is still in the game. And the glitch is that there you go, no resistance against the fortified stacks, and it shouldn't do, obviously. So you can put multiple versions on this, and it stacks. And the way to actually see it does, I love they patched this, but you can see here that my resistance piercing is 15%. So if I swap to my Roaring Umbra, that in theory should add 15% because it'll pick up. It should just pick up 50% of the resistance piercing, and when I swap to it, it goes up by 30, the full 30, which means that the two that I have modded on here are stacking. So that glitch is still in the game. Use it however you want, because what it works with is with Unstoppable Force, whereby you're getting a buff there. So basically, for the more I stack my armor piercing, the more that I get anomaly power. And with this build, sorry, hit the wrong button. This particular build, what it's taking advantage of is this. So basically, you then get a buff of 45% resistance piercing and 45% armor piercing, and because I'm stacking both those mods, that means actually that's a 90% buff to my anomaly power. And you're using this with the Akari gear set, so you're getting all the buffs with Heat Wave as well. Now, you could actually stack that even a little bit more, because you could put another armor piercing out. I didn't. I felt you get, so effectively you get 5%, or you get 10% additional anomaly power from that. I quite like actually getting the extra damage you get when you do your Ash Blast overheats. You're using the Ash Blast obviously then also to buff your anomaly power through there. So that I wanted to just highlight that one because that glitch is still in the game, and you can use it on multiple different characters. And again, maybe going back to your first question, Namo, about AP based rounds. Well, hang on a sec. One of the things you might want to do then is you stacking resistance piercing, or you picking up some armor piercing, and you maybe even going into the middle tree there with this sort of build, because this is where you've got that 15% within the Pyro's class tree. So maybe you start a build that starts on the bottom tree and then goes up to then pick this. So maybe you can't pick up these ones, but you can go into the middle tree here, and you're starting to have something then that has quite a lot of firepower. Great for that because you're picking up that, and you've got the anomaly, the mod on your weapon that gives you the firepower for your anomaly power. And then actually you're getting all these buffs to your anomaly power through that glitch. And I can show you. I guess I can try. I always say this. I go into an expedition and I haven't actually played the character in sort of months, like this one. Just seeing what's the one I can start. It isn't too bad, but let's do this one. And I then go in and just die straight away because I haven't played the character. It's one of the disadvantages of just doing build guides all the time, is that I'm forever swapping characters, and so I'm not sure if I'm really good at any of them, because I'm just I'm a jack of all trades really, because everything is, once I've got the build guide working, I move on to the next one. So you're basically doing the whole thing with the Atari and popping that, and then it's just a couple seconds and doing it and you can do that. I mean, it's just hilarious when you see basically the entire screen trying to get out. It's effectively everything on your mini map will go. Now, it won't quite kill something like an elite if you haven't actually hit them. Until you hit them with a bit of fire, because you're putting on 15% extra damage, but everything else, except there when it doesn't quite and it glitches, everything else pretty much dies straight away. But that's it. I mean, and you're getting also, interesting enough is you get, when everything is burning, you actually get heals from, I don't think it says anywhere in the tooltip, which is kind of odd. But so you see it here, as soon as I apply a heat wave, you start getting damage over time healing. That's not how or what it says in the tooltip for how the Pyro works. Yeah, it doesn't say anywhere, oh hey, you're going to get heal. You basically only supposed to get heals on kills with the Pyromancer. It doesn't work that way. As soon as you hit anything with heat wave, you're going to start getting heals coming in, which is great. That makes it a little bit more, if you're struggling with this, you're incredibly squishy with the Pyro. I want to keep doing that. But, if you're going to, you're playing as a Pyro and you're struggling to stay alive, equip heat wave. It's a great way for you to actually keep yourself up, even though when you go onto your class tree and check it, in theory, you are only recover health when enemies are killed. That's not what happens. Not in my practice. Now, maybe there's something I've not picked up. There's somewhere within here that you are picking up. But it seems to me, and maybe it's purely coming from skill life leech, which it could well be. That's purely your skill life leech kicking in. Yeah, it probably is. Just the skill life leech catching up. Tiny bit low on the mic. Thanks, mate. Yeah, let me just pop it up a bit. Everyone's too polite. I turned it down a little bit at the start and no one said anything. So thank you, Tobias, for mentioning that. So you're experimenting with the same idea for Pyro. Yeah, I think I think there's definitely some options there. And shout everyone if the mic is still a little bit too low. Hopefully that's a little bit better. So just about 10 minutes left of the stream. I think just really the only other thing that I was specifically wanting to cover in this one was just talk about sort of what's next, what I'll be focusing on. Again, if you've got any builds you want me to look at, you think, hey, look, this would make a really good video, some content, don't want to do it myself, but happy for me to actually do it for you, send them over to me. The armor melting node, hang on, let me go and just look up which one that is. Okay, great. Thanks, Tobias. So the armor melting mode. Which one? I can't remember which one that is. Presumably on Heatwave, is it? It's obviously not one I've used. No. Whereabouts is it, GW? You got plate piercer and resistance piercing. I always wanted to make a build. Oh, maybe the game's okay. Let me turn down the game sound. Okay, yeah, Tobias sent it out to me. So my the email. So basically, set up on Outriders app. I don't know if you know the website or the utility. It's basically you can just search Outriders app. Great ways to actually play about with your builds and set them up and try and work out what you're going for, as well as having the ability to check for god rolls for guns, weapons and armor. Send it through to me at casual@nylcasualgaming.com. Send through the builds. Happy to have a look at them. And give you any suggestions if I see some. So I just did one for a chap last week who was wanted me to have a look at his build and went through and just provided him sort of like, hey, I would change this and this. So yeah, I'll use it. Great, Tobias. Yeah, send it through to me. That'd be really good, and I'll have a look at it. So armor melting. I must admit, I don't know that one. Because you've obviously got no resistance to fortified. You've got. Oh, I'll have a look for it and just see where that is on the no resistance for the fortified. Because I must admit, I don't know that one. Or at least I haven't memorised all the names of them. Is probably the other thing. But I'll have a look. So the final thing, just in the last few minutes before I sign out, and I should never have said this is the last thing because everyone's like dropping off now. So thanks for those 5 of you are still hanging on. I'm working on a couple of videos at the moment. In the class tree. Right, hang on. All right. So armor melting. Okay, all guns blazing. All right. Oh, that one. Yeah, it's I got you. No worries. There's a just so everyone knows, there's a lag on. So I see things probably about 10 seconds after you've actually typed them in. I know it's weird. There's just a lag in how actually YouTube feeds stuff through. But yeah, so. The one thing I've got about that is I'm not 100%. I haven't tested it, and if you've tested it, let me know how that works with all the other with the Unstoppable Force, whether it picks it up properly. Because I did build it with that in, and I wasn't always seeing the results that I thought I should be. Maybe I just need to go away and test that a bit more, like I did with the firepower mods. So maybe I'll have a look at that because yeah, you're right. I mean, a 30% buff, that would be huge, a huge buff. So you could hit them with the heat wave for the 15%. Well, for a couple of things, you're getting additional damage from heat wave. Oops, sorry, that must have been horrible to look at. And then you've also obviously got, if I remember which one it is, burnt out. So you're going to get 25% more damage. For 8 seconds, you can hit them 3 times with the heat wave, and so they're going to get 75% more damage. And I think it's additive rather than multiplicative. Then you get an extra 30% for anomaly power buffing that, and so you just go, wow, you can actually do a hell of a lot of damage. But because it's only specifically for those enemies, does it feed into Unstoppable Force? So what I mean by that is I popped it when you look at your stats, I wasn't necessarily seeing my armor piercing going up like I thought it should do. Tobias, it's casual at nylcasualgaming.com, and that will get through to me and I'll have a look at it. So I'm just not 100% certain it will feed all the way through to Unstoppable Force. So you get the benefit of the armor piercing, which is less useful because you're not probably shooting them anyway, but you're not going to get the buff to your anomaly power, which is what you're looking for. So hey, Greymark, you always come in just at the end, Greymark, every time. Come on. Anyway, very happy to have you here. So good to see you. So I'm just going to go for the final thing, and then I'll drop it. I can run over it a little bit, but not too much over. So in terms of videos, or content I'm looking to put out soon. Couple of things. I mean, I haven't got a huge amount of build guides coming, as I said before. I think we've largely done them all. So I don't want to sort of just constantly putting out videos that are going, oh look, here's this one, and I tweaked it a little bit, and I just don't think that's what you guys want. I don't think that's what you want really. I think if I'm going to put a build guide out there, you want something different. And at the moment, we, yeah, I know what you mean about. Well, I did know what I used to work. I don't work anymore, which is the great thing. If it's a new build guide, it needs to be new and different. It needs to be something you haven't seen before. And I include within that stuff that other people have covered. So I'm not going to copy one of Nick Chew's builds and just put it out there. Why? It's just, so what? I also, I mean, there are some builds that still are just, they're viable when there's no timer, but why? Do you really want to spend 20 minutes? And you're right, Grey Mark, there will be plenty more when WorldSlayer comes out, hopefully. But do you want to run an expedition that takes you 20 minutes? The answer is no. Yes, you can complete it, but that's just not very efficient, particularly when, hey, you've got to go to work and you don't have all the time in the world. I'm not going to put those sort of build guides out. I'm going to focus on stuff that actually is something where it's like, hey, I didn't know that. And I like covering the world record speedrun builds because quite often there's some builds there that the combos in them are brilliant. I mean, since seeing the, I think it was the Pyromancer one with the Roaring Umbra and the Funeral Pyre used in this way. I don't use anything other than Funeral Pyre and Roaring Umbra if I'm using an Omni Power build, because it's just so on demand when you need it. Moaning Winds, Radiation Splash is a bigger individual hit. So I'm just trying to think where I've got that on. Not on there. And the Juggler, that's a great one as well. I mean, that's a really good option. You've got that Scrap Grenade Grand Opening, hit them with the first shot, bang, thank you very much, everything's going to die. But you have to hit them, or else Grand Opening doesn't work. I just think, the Claymore Torrent, Shadow Comet is so much better when you hip firing it, and it can proc multiple times. So I'll keep putting out builds where it's covering, there's something new in there. I think, hey, that's really cool. We could all do with knowing that. But until there's something, some new weapons, new classes, and yes, Grey Mark, you're spot on. It's like the Trickster build. So the Trickster World Record build is basically the same build that everyone has put out pretty much. There's no bells and whistles, nothing special. I think the Pyro World Record one was quite unique because of that reload boost mechanic. The fact that they'd worked out that, and I hadn't, was that overheat, that one. So basically with Phoenix Force, the way Phoenix Force is worded, and of course I won't be able to remember which piece of gear I've got it on. It might be, is it on that one? Nope. Oh God, of course I'll never be able to find it now. Alright, let me just go to Dr. Zahidi, it's a bit quicker. The way the tooltip for Phoenix Force is worded implies that it only actually works when oh God, there we go. Oh wait, there it is. So when you read that one, it says, you earn additional anomaly power when a stasis is consumed. So the way I read that initially was, okay, so if there isn't a status to be consumed, it's not going to do anything. And actually that's not true. While it doesn't consume anything, you can pop it, you still get the anomaly power from everything it hits. And so when you actually see the world record runs, for example, on that Marshall's complex I just did, he pops Phoenix Force before they, as soon as they effectively spawn in, before the doors open, and his anomaly power goes through the roof, and he's able to do an Ash Blast overheat then to actually kill them before the doors even open. And I was like, how the hell is that working? He's not consumed anything. He doesn't. And sort of finding some of these glitches, I think, is great. I think, if I see anything like that, I will put a build guide out on it. The other thing that I want to keep doing is just as we get more news on WorldSlayer, I'll put that out so that everyone knows what's going on, so we can all then try and maybe anticipate what's going to come in down the pipe and get excited about it. To be honest, I started looking at things like looking at PCF themselves, and maybe I might do just one video on, hey, these are PCF. This is because I didn't realise that they bought 2 new development studios, one in South America, I think it was. See, South America or Spain, it's SA, which I think is South American companies, have S.A. And then they've got one in Canada now as well as New York. They've got one in the UK, obviously a whole load in Poland, Ukraine and other places. And so I might do something on that, just so we sort of say, and they're actually developing, I think it's one other AAA title, which Square Enix is going to be the publisher, and one actually self-publicized, one other that they're doing rather than associating, so, which is quite interesting because it's very different than model of how they get money. So with Square Enix, you can see that over the last couple of years, Square Enix was paying them money every single quarter for them to develop Outriders. When they're doing it themselves, they're not going to get anything until they actually get the game out there. My English is gone, so it's too many years living in the US. I can't actually speak English anymore. So that's quite interesting. So I might do something on PCF itself. And that's probably the main things on Outriders that I'll be doing in the near future, other than the odd builds that come through that we want to have a look at. The other thing will be I want to do something on Tiny Tina's Wonderland, which is coming out in March. That looks really cool. Different. I mean, the similarities with Outriders is that I think it's going to have a lot of the RPG elements, the class building, class systems, the weapon systems, the mod systems maybe, that we'll see in there. So I'm going to do maybe something that'll be a little bit of a longer video, looking into what they've announced so far, the classes and everything else, and getting us ready for that one. And then, of course, I'll also be putting out Division 2 content, albeit probably more focused on Division Heartland, which is due to be coming out hopefully in the short term. But we have got the Division 2 update, so everything's still focused within looter shooters, because hey, look, we all like looter shooters, but certainly sort of branching out while we're still waiting for WorldSlayer to come, hopefully within the next few months. So start to wrap things up. Tempest, I think should have gone with my Devastator. Do you reckon it's possible to do builds like that on other classes? I mean, absolutely. Obviously, the Pyro is the one that absolutely. The on the Technomancer, you have basically the AOE builds, so you can build one around scrap. No, I did do one on that ages ago. That was just pure AOE. Didn't shoot anything other than to proc, Shadow Common, Claymore Torrent. Moaning Wind sort of stuff, but everything was just you just ran around throwing stuff. So basically you never used any ammo whatsoever on it. So you absolutely can. I think the only one you couldn't do is probably Trickster, because it just doesn't have the skills to do a massive AoE. I mean, you can do a anomaly build, which I put one out on using anomaly blade. Don't use Cyclone Slice, it just doesn't do enough damage as it stands. But yeah, definitely you can absolutely do those builds, particularly Pyro, particularly Techno, where you don't fire your gun at all really, other than to proc some of your weapon mods. Yeah, it would be interesting to see about swapping class skills. The only thing I think will be difficult for that is just how do you balance it with the game. if you start mixing some of these class skills between different classes, very quickly it'd just become unmanageable and too complex. I already think that what PCF have done with this game is too complex. When you think about there's so many mods in the game, whether it be weapon mods, whether it be armor mods, combined with class trees that there aren't 3 class trees because of the fact you can branch up and down. If you want to get to the end there are, but there are so many builds you can make that actually go between the skill trees. I mean, a little bit like this one, which is part top tree, part middle tree. You have ones that even more so that you can build. That becomes incredibly complex to try and balance that against the enemies that you're throwing against them, and I think that's why you're not seeing any more than you've already got massive amounts of ability to mix and match. I think it's probably enough for them to be able to do. So there you go. So that's all I want to cover in this stream. I think do send through any builds you want to. So Tobias, send it through. If you have any problems, just reach out to me, comment on a vid and I'll see it, and I'll comment on this video and I'll pick it up afterwards. Thanks for joining me. Really great to see you all. Funny enough, every stream so far has done better than the last one. So I think this one peaked at 13 viewers. So that's my record to try and break for next time. No, you're right. Division 2... Division 2 went through an arc. When Division 2 first came out, it was just as complex because every gear piece you had potentially a class node on it, or because it had basically a special skill on it, and it was an incredibly complex system, which they then scaled back a bit to where it is now. The fact that PCF have kept with what they've got, I think is incredible, and great. Let's hope they can build it. I don't know. I really hope. I mean, thinking about WorldSlayer and what I would hope for, new class would be great. Obviously, new story, but that yes, we're going to get a new story because they put a new bad guy in it. New zones, and completely new zones would be great. I think I think the zones they've done are really good. I would love it to be a little bit more open world. I mean, I understand why they did what they did. In terms of they made very small zones so they could really control how the battles were, how those encounters were. So they brought them down so they could control the number of enemies, they could control how they brought them in, and how the game felt. Great. I would love it to be a little bit more open zone. Do an Elden Ring. Go from where you are, now you've perfected it, and say, okay, let's now make it just a massive zone where you can roam around and it feels a little bit more live. A real world. I think that would be great. Obviously, a new game mode. I think expeditions are great, but the way I think about the expeditions are a sandbox. All of us can beat them. Anyone who plays the game for 40 hours, say, can beat every one of the expeditions on CC15. For me, that's not why they're there. For me, they are there so that we can try out different builds against the content. And they've given us different ones to at least make it somewhat interesting. And the real end game is creating builds, not beating the content. Which is why you see a lot of people who said, I played it for 40 hours and I never touched it again. Because their view of the world is more of that sort of Destiny view of the world, which is, once I've actually can finish the content with one build, I've finished the game. And I don't think that was ever the intention of this game. It's all about, okay, now you've done that, now try a completely different build and go and grind for the gear and create that and then try it again. So that's what gave it its longevity. We need something else now. I think if they came out and said, okay, here's another 10 or 15 new expeditions, here's a new class, here's some new legendary weapon. Yeah, you absolutely need more legendaries. I mean, beating the Storm, Realm of Fear, I mean, solo. I mean, I think if you're in a group, you should be able to beat that with most classes, unless all three of you are completely unviable. But I think once you can beat it all, I mean, the Eye of Storm and Realm of Fear are probably the closest to a piece of content that's like, hey, once you've beaten that, you've done it. Because it's up. But then again, on the flip side, Eye of the Storm is boring as hell. I mean, when you look at all the other expeditions, at least you're moving through something of a world. With Eye of the Storm, it's one zone and 3 of those horrible pillars where you just stand there and let the enemies come towards you and ideally keep them out of the zone. It's why they did that, I will never know. Yeah, if you think of the pinnacle of your game is the most boring expedition, no, that was just a big mistake as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, so I hope we get new game mode would be great. I think something that's different, something that really utilizes the different classes and how they work, so that you need someone to run Fixing Wave, so that you've got an actual healer in the game. You need someone to run a Devastator, and you give the Devastator some ability to suck in aggro. That would be, to me, with the take the game from here to up here, it really would make it into a really great multiplayer game. Whereas at the moment, I think it's a really great single person game with multiplayer aspects tacked on that don't always work. Good stuff. Thank you again so much for joining me. And at this point, I'm going to sign off because I've got to go run some errands. I will speak to you all later. I'll be back on Friday for Division 2. And actually, I've almost finished leveling, so it's going to have to start doing something different there. And then also, I'll see you in a week's time to do some more builds, and maybe we go through Tobias's build if it's a good one. So make sure it is good, Tobias. All right. Speak to you later. Cheers.